Welcome everyone. I hope everyone's surviving the lockdown. And today's session is going to be about surviving the cookieless world. With that, just want to introduce the esteemed panelists, starting from Jayesh. Jayesh is an consultant in AdTech, currently consulting with Z5. Rohit heads the programmatic for display for AirAsia, and Taranjeet Kaur, who's the head of media for beverage, head of media for in Tata Consumer Products. So welcome all, and I hope we're going to have a very interesting session. Just to start off with the point on what is a cookieless world, right? Now, just stepping back, the third-party cookie has granted many marketers the ability to know what their users better than many of the users have imagined. And they've also enabled the agencies to elevate their value proposition by upskilling in advanced analytics, cloud computing, and data management. Technical expertise has outpaced both government regulations and user concern over privacy, keeping an ad tech nose in front. However, with things like Cambridge Analytica scandals, a spat of high-profile customer data breaches, that has resulted in governments and users to paying more attention of the cookieless world. January 14 this year, Google announced that they will be ending support for their third-party cookies via Chrome browsers. Now, Google Chrome was not the first one to actually implement that. They had Apple Safari and Mozilla both updated their browsers in 2019. But their combined global market share was less than 1/3 for Chrome's, right? And over the past decade, the ability for third-party cookies has given rise to some lucrative innovations in advertising industry, spoiling the entire categories or subcategories, solving the problem of ad spend optimization and many others. But once you get into a cookieless world, that's going to change the world. That's going to change a whole lot of things for us, right from the brand as well as the agencies. And the few things which clearly is going to get changed is the following. Number one is the multi-touch attribution. Models will no longer be able to count many of the impressions served in the part 2 conversions. So we need to figure out and reinvent how we're going to do attribution. Number 2 are DMPs. They will be limited by the ability to drive audience segments from their site visits. Number 3 would be third-party data providers. They also will be limited to create audience segments based on browsing behavior and content consumption. View-through conversion tracking, which is something very, very important for many of the OTT players and many other industries categories. The third-party trackers placed by the advertisers on their own website will not be able to match conversion back to where the ads were shown. Frequency management is another thing. The ability to manage frequency of exposure across platforms and sites will definitely get affected, right? And the last but not the least is the remarketing. The ability to remarket banners with creative messaging to consumer based on browsing behavior, product interest, and so on will be impacted. Certain dynamic creative formats will also suffer as we go along. Now, that's the world that we are stepping into right now. And one of the things that we will have to do is first recognize the need that we will get cookieless faster than we can think, which basically means that we would have to upskill or train our teams, both the agency as well as brands, as well as publishers, and the entire ecosystem on how and teach them about privacy. Secondly, for advertisers, they need to move away from, not from brand safety to more about brand suitability, right? Keeping that in mind, I just wanted to start the discussion with maybe Jayesh, you want to talk about that in your experience with Z5 or otherwise, how you really training your team or upskilling your team and how you're preparing for a cookieless world?
So I think one good thing about a lot of about India is that we are a mobile first nation. So a lot of the higher end consumers are on apps and that is not cookie driven. It is driven by a different device ID based identification of the user. So that way, we are far more fortunate in India that we have a high penetration of mobile apps. But in terms of a broader strategy that we have employed at ZEE5 is to go first party. So we would be harnessing first party data in a very compliant manner, privacy compliant manner. We have also made sure that when a user logs in, there is a registration process which is voluntary. But at the same time, there's a nudge that we provide for people to register. And then we are building everything from that perspective to use this first party data. We also have very good signals. So, the kind of content that the person is watching, the way he tops up his subscription packages, his device gives a good understanding of his purchasing power. So one is to build our own customer data platform, which is beyond a DMP, right? I think the first thing any publisher should do in this new environment is to junk their DMP, because that is not going to be a scalable model in the future. So is to invest in CDPs, your data lakes, and basically understand which signals are good for audience creation and which and use this time to stitch it together, right? What we are trying to do is that earlier we used to use a different set of segments for our advertising purposes when ZEE5 is an advertiser and is acquiring users, whereas we used to have a different set of segments for our audiences which advertisers are buying. Now we are stitching the entire spectrum of data from audiences which we give to advertisers, which we ourselves use for our user acquisition and customer lifecycle management. So using the customer data platform, we're bringing all of that together and in a way owning our own data stack and not having any dependence on DMPs or even some of the larger platforms like Google and Facebook.
Very interesting. Junk DMPs, that's a very strong statement from Jayesh over there. Rohit, would you want to talk about what are the things that you guys are doing at AirAsia to look at the cookieless world?
I'm definitely aligned with what Jayesh said. Even at AirAsia, we not just after the cookie world, but even before we thought of going online, we started with the concept of having a unique identifier to the user. So we have this loyalty program, which is called Big Loyalty. So the unique identifier we use across all our websites or data customer profiles is this big member ID. So all the other identifiers, universal identifiers like email, mobile, and the device IDs that we have are attached to this ID. So having this type of framework and rich signals coming from both airline business and also from the loyalty side of thing, we have a very good set of segments built in a house, and we use Google Stack to host this data on the cloud. And we even at the moment, even before the cookie vanishes, we already have certain connectors to the platforms that can pump in this customer segments into the ad platforms and allow us to target them in real time. So we kind of have all the infrastructure in place. Maybe we should make it a bit more flexible in order to adapt to the scenario where there is no cookie at all.
Thanks, Roy. Taranjeet, for you, that's a very, very unique problem because unlike what Jayesh and Rohit said, they're mostly online businesses where you are the one who's really running the FMCG. So what's your point of view on the cookieless world? Would love to hear that.
Yeah, so I feel, I think I just completely agree with what Jayesh mentioned, is that the cookieless world, I think, is a more scare for countries outside India, where, mobile apps are not so popular. And obviously, because we are mobile first, the cookieless environment, I think we are anyway somewhere into it in some way as advertisers. Because if you see what is the digital consumption today for consumers, if I run my campaign, 70% gets served on mobile and 30% on desktop, right? So anyways, we are doing a lot of things, a lot of advertising, which are very, very focused, whether it's through programmatic or whether it is through direct bias through apps, right? So a lot of it is anyways right now focused on apps. If that is one of the things, right? The second thing is that what is really important for advertisers, and irrespective of CPG category or any advertiser per se, I think, is how we really collect data, right? So there is one thing where people are talking about we should have a lot of data with us and we should start building first party data. I think that is definitely crucial for advertisers to build their own first party data. But how do we really collect that data is really important, right? So there are two sets of data that really exist, which is deterministic and probabilistic, right? Currently, if you think of it, a lot of the data that we are really analyzing comes into the probabilistic zone. And I hear this word lookalike so much that it's not funny, right? So what happens is, I feel that even when it comes to lookalike audiences and the usage of that data, sometimes I feel it is overexploited, right? But the definition itself of lookalike is if the consumer is really over-indexed on certain traits, then you create a lookalike. And you just don't create lookalikes of every campaign, right? I think that's one important thing for all CPG categories, because that's what we really do, right? And the third thing is on the tech stack, right? With the cookieless environment coming in picture, it's really important for advertisers to try and build their own tech stack. Maybe very convenient for the big players because it requires huge funding. But I feel for the medium or a small sized advertiser, they can always license it, right? Because the dependency has to really go down. What happens is the moment you have your own tech stack, you have a lot of control in your hand, whether it is for a cookieless environment or for the future changes that happens in digital. Because the DMP is yours, the DSP is yours, the ad server is yours. A lot of things are in your control, right? So I feel these are the three elements which as advertisers, we need to be really prepared for. And I feel advertisers are already doing it, right? To state an example, American Express, right now, what they're doing is they're testing some campaigns on Safari and Firefox, right? To figure out, because they've already entered that world, right? To figure out how the campaigns are performing. I think that's where we also need to start preparing ourselves, because that one day will come, everybody will be, oh my God, that cookieless world we've entered, now what do we do? So I think it's really important for us to start testing a lot of campaigns, specifically in the CPG category, because we use a lot of walled gardens. We also use programmatic in a lot of manner. So hence, it's very important for us to start testing now, so that when the D-Day comes, we're really prepared.
So what I hear from you guys is from Jayesh, jump the DMP. I will remember that. From Rohit, he's talking about they're already using unique identifiers. I'm sure Z5 and Jayesh would also be using unique identifiers in Taranjeet. Very interestingly, you talked about how TechStack needs to be already thought about how we're going to be using it, and a whole lot of testing that's going to come in place. So all those important points, but the two takeouts over here that I want to talk about is one, what is an alternative to cookie? For the larger audience, that will be a good point to start off from. Second is, how do you guys imagine a tech stack of 2022? How would the tech stack change? So what would be the alternative to cookies, Jayesh, if you want?
As I said, on mobile apps, there is already a device identifier, what is known as an ad ID, which can be captured by apps. So I think that offers an alternative to cookie. There are other mechanisms which people are trying to stitch together, where it's a mix of deterministic data which they own, where they know the email or the phone number, and they can run a limited seed set, and they're trying to scale that, right? And then trying to see how that behavior happens on different platforms, and hence that can be used. It's not a perfect science, but people are using it, and it has more limited scale. than that. So it's kind of what kind of create a universal ID, which using identity resolution engines of your own, but then trying to run a lot of experimentation on different platform scenarios of the user journey to kind of stress test that and start. I wouldn't use the word lookalike, but improving the model and scale as you go along. I think that is something that is an option. Third is to also use other surrogates, right? I mean, when I say surrogates or signals that you can get, which I think what happens today in advertising is that there is no standard definition of how a segment is created, right? Because today I might be using stronger signals. Say, for example, in the travel category, let's say you're getting a signal from Skyscanner or some aggregator like that, which is saying, okay, this guy actually searched for a flight. So that is a very stronger intent signal that he's a travel enthusiast, compared to, say, using a location-based approach where you have seen, say, that this guy has been seen near the airport a few times, right? So I think one is to kind of use more better quality signals to determine what is the audience that you want to target. And I will see people are trying to cooperate a lot more with other digital native players, right? Which to kind of stitch this together, right? With two companies coming together, kind of trying to do a data exchange. What we're also seeing in other developed markets, and to some extent it has happened in India, is people who are sitting on a lot of good data in a privacy compliant way are also helping DSPs and DMPs. So for example, in Australia, there is a company called Red Planet, which owns a lot of contest loyalty data, which is around 9 million in a country of 22 million. So that is very strong data. Retailers like, again, in Australia, Woolworths, which is, and Australia tends to be an oligopolistic market. So you work with one player, you get 60% of the consumer data. So they are also helping DSPs and DMPs as alternate data providers. We are also seeing, to some extent in India, Flipkart doing it in some way. Then we have seen Truecaller as another mechanism to validate consumer data. In Southeast Asia, there is people like Grab and Gojek. They are entering. So I think the industry also needs stronger data partners like telcos, other digital natives, loyalty aggregators to help them in this journey, so that there is less dependence on the duopoly who have very good data, but it protects their interests first. And so I think these are all the alternatives available.
Thanks, Jayesh. That's very, very good examples over there. And what about, and Rohit, coming back to you, you said that you currently use Google Stack. Now, how do you see that's changing? Because your multi-touch attribution, your DMPs, your onboarders, these things are going to be, well, not really relevant going forward. How do you see your tech stack changing going forward?
So when I say tech stack, it's more of a cloud-based tech stack. So in terms of how the data is structured within the ecosystem doesn't change a lot. But let's say if we have to pump this data into the marketing platforms or for targeting per se, we will have to think more about how we can build connectors that are more meaningful in terms of enhancing the segments that we have, can be partnered with any other publishers, and we can match the data in order to find relevancy, and also do some sort of lookalike based targetings outside the existing audience database who are similar to the current set. So I wouldn't say there would be a lot of change in terms of the tech stack that we have in terms of data. What would really change is how the connectors will enhance or change to the new scenario.
Coming back to Taranjeet, how do you see while we are a cookieless environment, but Jayesh also gave some very great examples of how, is there different kind of partnerships that you see that will happen in India going forward? That's number one. the second part of the question, which is related to that, do you think that there is going to be a need for a standardization that will be driven in India?
Yeah.
So that is something that was just. So Taranjeet, if you want to take that.
Yeah. So I feel, yeah, of course, standardization is something which will be really, really core. Because with the cookieless environment, it will be each publisher having their own data set and, telling us this is what the consumer is all about. And I think it's up to the advertiser to really come and match that. I think we are already in a scenario where we are trying to match TV and digital systems and come to a common ground, right? And now we've entered another world where within digital, now we're trying to get to a uniform way of measuring it, right? So I think it is important for advertisers to have their own data evaluation framework, right? So whether it means, have your own sets of data where you evaluate for each steps, what is really that you're really looking for, what kind of cohorts that you really want to target, and how each publisher is really addressing that. So I think data evaluation framework is something which we should start working on. And I think the other part is on partnerships. Of course, I think there is universal login tracking, which are owned by the walled gardens of Google, Facebook, Twitter. I think a lot of advertisers may find merit in partnership with those, right? Because they are the ones, I think, with the cookieless environment coming in, they are the ones who are going to get more power, right? Because they are in a very different scenario versus the other third-party publishers, right? And also, I feel the device owners, right? That's also somewhere I feel are somewhere where we can figure out where the partnership is, but totally depends on what the objective of the campaign is or the brand is, right? So if tomorrow my entire objective revolves around, how do I drive more awareness and find conversion on e-com, I may go ahead and do a partnership with Amazon, right? So it's totally depends on what really you want to achieve. But I feel device owners and the walled gardens are going to be playing very important role for partnerships.
Yeah, if I might just double click on what Taranjeet was also saying, is that you will see that because of this, firstly, I mean, on the mobile app side, there are device identifiers, and that offers a lot more opportunities anyway. But yeah, the best thing is that you would probably tend to use the larger platforms which have their own identity, like Google, Facebook, and Twitter, a lot more. But what I would recommend every organization to do is to also evaluate everything much more closely, right? Because once you don't want to be in a situation where your entire customer strategy is dictated in a certain way by the constraints of different platforms, right? Yeah. Which is why that conversation, which needs to be far more mature and important with the big platforms, right? To say, look, and that's why slowly investing in your own stacks and running experimentation, because it's not going to be a perfect science. Yes. And what I think is some signals are more important to an FMCG than a bank. And what we have done in the advertising industry is to have very generic segments at times with poor. So that is something that everyone needs to invest, and every organization also needs to put in create an integration between their CRM and advertising infrastructure, which is sometimes missing in these days. And then, of course, there is also the Google privacy sandbox, which we still don't know how it will turn out. But that if it turns out well for the industry, it could be a great open can benefit from. And so we should not, we don't know how it will turn out at this stage. So there should be a backup strategy and a strategy to, keep evaluating how that sandbox will also work.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Jayesh. I think also from, when I was talking about the data evaluation framework, I think when we have a list of publishers, which we're really evaluating, whether it's a walled gardens or, anyone else, it's again very important on what kind of data they are giving us, and how are we really, understanding to meet our needs, right? So, for example, in the FMCG space, the universal TG is female 22 to 44, ABC.
Yeah, and preferably moms.
Preferably moms, right? So how do we really get to that, right? So, for example, whether it is observed data, whether it's inferred data, what kind of data. And most of the data that we have right now are all modeled, right? So we say that, okay, this is how the algorithm is, go to the CMI team, okay, and get, and this is how finally the female 22 to 44 is different, and everybody comes up with, grocery shopping and etc., which are quite similar. I think then what you really rightly pointed out is that how each actually publisher, okay, is giving us data, how are they collecting in the back end is really, really important, right? And I think that's like a very, very crucial role. And dependency, of course, should not be created. And that's the whole objective, I think, we should definitely chase.
Yeah. So finding one signal is more important than another, and finding what's the right signal for your brand or your business or your category is absolutely important. And I completely agree to what about your audience data, right? And let's talk about a little bit about audience data. Now, audience data is not the only data publishers have to offer. They're in a unique position to provide consumer insight or cultural stems to inform any of the targeting data. This approach is now being augmented with content analytics systems that quicken the publisher's ability to understand and respond. In case of, and that also brings out to an interesting thing that while we need to have a framework for every publisher in terms of how they're collecting data and using it, we also need to now quantify how each of these publishers or partners, if I can call them, is going to be evaluated basis the campaign performance. So Rohit, going forward, and all three of you maybe, how do you see in the future that we will be able to quantify a campaign performance at a partner level? Will it be partnering with research agencies like Nielsen by themselves? Is it going to be a reliable survey methodology? Is there a standardization or a Google privacy sandbox that's going to come in place that's going to help us do that? Where do you want to see that? Rohit, if you want to start over there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if Google proposes an alternative solution to the third-party cookie crisis, it's well and good. We will at least have some sort of deterministic model to evaluate the publisher performance on how they are playing a role in driving conversions to our website, right? So just in case if those things don't turn out well, and there is a scenario where the third-party cookie or measurement or multi-touch attribution becomes absolute, we as advertisers should have backup plans, and it's possible only through direct partnerships with publishers. So publishers should be ready to give more transparency into metrics, or like more flexibility in terms of A/B testing the controlled exposure of audience, or measuring the impact of isolated geos kind of experimentation. And at the same time, they should enable the advertisers to do brand lift studies, and maybe to an advanced level, what they could even do is matching the audience exposure data on the publisher side with the data that advertisers has from the post booking, and see how much of the targeted audience is overlapping with the actual bookings coming to the website. So that can give some sort of identifiers to evaluate the publisher performance or the campaign effectiveness. But it wouldn't be as real time or as accurate as the current methods. It has to be a backup plan, and it depends on the advertiser scenario on which one to choose. There wouldn't be a standardized practice across the industry, but I would say it's custom approach based on advertisers' requirement.
So what I hear you say, Rohit, from a very fast moving XYZ conversion from X publisher almost in real time to a slow moving metrics is something that we need to evolve to.
Yes.
You want to talk about how we're going to be getting ready for that as an industry or as at Z5?
Yeah, so I think what we are seeing is because of the whole COVID situation, and we are seeing the birth of a very new category in India, right? OTT, like, has become household term, just like how Zoom is now a household term, right? And what it provides today is something better than TV and something better than YouTube, which is a great position to be in as Z5. What we are seeing today is actually advertisers asking us for a lot of, I would say, insights and planning capabilities. What I mean by that is today we have opened up the country into green, yellow, and red, right? In terms of response to COVID. So supplies are available very easily in the green zone. So people want to target green zones, but advertisers are asking us, what are kind of insights you can give us about behavior in these towns specifically, because we have never targeted Assam separately, for example, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think what is happening today is publishers also sit on a lot of good, I would say, insightful data, right? And which can be used for broader campaign planning. And it is very recent, right? Today you can take an action very quickly on how your COVID response based advertising strategy would be, which is geographically different. What also, let's say there is a scenario where a woman's audience is equal between, say, YouTube, another platform, and us. So let's say we have somehow figured out these are all female audiences, right? Whether it's through registration, through whatever mechanism. But then what you can overlay is becomes more critical, right? One is content, which means what they are watching, context, like, are they, lean forward, how many times do they transact, and we can also do a lot of contextual advertising today, because what has also happened with the cloud infrastructure and AI infrastructure getting widespread, today you can read a content stream very well and say there's a lot of metadata about, hey, look, this is a great for piece of furniture. Do you want to shop for it, right? Based on the video, or shop the look kind of. So that's good context, right? And all of this also because of other tools which we can put in the app, you can complete the purchase cycle even in the same session, right? Where we can also avoid. What we also have to learn from some of the best-in-class businesses is this whole concept of one-click experiences, right? Where you can actually try to converge the experience into one click, so that you kind of compress the cycle, right? The compression of the sales cycle by working closely with the publisher is also a very strong opportunity. And I think we have probably in the industry overdone this whole, the segments, right? You can target a segment accurately and precisely, but there is no reason why he would react to your ad, right? That is also dependent a lot on content, context, the emotional aspect, and whether the experience is in the right way, right? If you're watching a music video and you don't want to be disturbed, there's no way that the brand engagement is going to happen, right? Whereas, so I think all of this have started contributing a lot more to how we work with advertisers. And actually, this period of COVID we have never got so many inbound queries from advertisers on how to plan their campaigns. And I think that is why there's a growing trust on publishers to offer such insights, especially in the OTT category.
Ranjit, I know you agreed to whatever Jayesh said, but would you want to double click on it, please?
Yeah, I think totally echo what Jayesh and Rohit both said is, we will have to rely a lot more on publishers to give us more detailed data. And I remember I'd done a partnership with one of the OTT players where we were asking for what study can you give us, and this is a year back, right? And all they had was a BLS, right? But I think today if somebody tells me I have a BLS, I will say no, please give me some more, right? Because right now the comparison is not just of OTT with YouTube, it is also with TV, right? So everything is just so comparable. All of a sudden people are locked at home. They're also doing OTT, and they're also on YouTube, and they're also on TV, right? There's Ramayana and Mahabharata, which is picking up on TV, right? And then there is OTT original series which are picking up on TV, right? But if I have $10, where do I really invest in, right? So I think with more data will come a better decision. And I think also from one of the points that you mentioned on how do we really evolve with tech stack 2022 coming in, I think all the publishers and the brands really need to integrate their APIs with the tech stack, right? I think that's going to be really, really critical because it also builds a lot of trust, transparency, visibility to a lot of stuff that we are doing, right? Anyone who's on the call who doesn't have a tech stack, I feel, is also can really rely on publishers, and I think this is a great space for publishers to really get the consumer and the advertiser forever with you, right? Because the guy is just so much vulnerable right now, right? To where you are really hungry for reaching the right audience in such a period. If you really crack it, I think any advertiser would totally buy into the publisher.
Absolutely. Completely agree with all three of you and how we need to reimagine tech stack and reimagine how we work with publishers. I like the point that Jay said, yes, you can target the segment, but there is no way that you will know that this content that you're showing them in that segment is something that appeals to them. In fact, if I had an answer and an example over there, the essence and how we diversify the publisher data, what we did is we took the content API to develop a real-time hyper-contextual ads. The article ads feeds naturally to a language processing engine to understand the nature of the article and serves the dynamic variation created. And all this was done into more personalized without using any personal data. And I think experiments like these would probably go a long way. I think we can keep talking about this topic for another 1 hour, but there seems to be a lot of questions that seems to be coming in. So I'm going to address and take a few of them over there. And maybe Jayesh over here is, and that's an open question for everyone. In fact, how is the organization, especially marketing, preparing for a data privacy laws?
Yeah, so I mean, whatever we have done is all privacy compliant. So no PII data is ever being used in advertising. That is sacrosanct. We are also appointing privacy officers. There's a lot of privacy guidelines internally in the system that we follow. And I think just in terms of whatever I mentioned is all privacy compliant in that sense, right? We don't use any PII information. I think there are jurisdictions which term, like I think GDPR, where cookie is personally identifiable. And so there are consent mechanisms available to take care of that. So I think everything that we do in today's world will be privacy first, compliant and consent based, right? And what we also have to realize is that advertising always, though we say it is personalized, it is actually always in aggregates, right? We don't know that this is Rahul Marwaha. We know that he's probably a person who lives in this geography and uses these kind of apps. That's what it means.
I think the next question I'll probably to Rohit. It's by Animesh Mishra. He says, how is the process of selection of a MarTech stack now versus in a cookieless world be different?
In the previous scenario, the main factors for selection of an ad stack would be how accurate or what sort of measurement can the ad stack provide and all. But post-cookieless world, it would be more of whether a particular DSP or a ad network is capable of giving you additional targeting capabilities, may it be contextual or intent-based signals, and giving a post-cookie world, definitely the reach metrics on the publisher side going to get impacted. So if you have an existing ad tech stack, you will have to reevaluate on how the reach numbers and the way the ad stack is going to manage the frequency is going to be key in terms of considering the platform or ad network that you are going to go with.
Awesome. I think we have time only for one last question, and Taranjeet, I'll let you answer that. So I think what Satya is trying to answer is that a unique loyalty ID works if the entity is already a customer. Now, what are the examples of when a person is not a customer. And I think I think what they want to know is how different areas that one needs to really tie up with publishers and partners to actually get them into the ecosystem to convert them to customers.
Yeah, okay. I think loyalty is something which holds good for maybe a category where Rohit is, right? For the CPG category, I feel loyalty programs are, I can state an example of, less loyalty, I think more on how do you really build the customer. An example of first party, which was, made by Levers on Be Beautiful, right? So what they really did is they created a platform where the customer got so hooked onto that he was happy to be tracked, right? So he opted to be there, okay, and happy to be tracked. And that's, I think, where you build your own customer loyal base, because the guy is just not going to a e-com space or, just going outside just to find information, but is actually coming to you. So you create your own content pieces, you create something which really clicks with the consumer so that he really gets hooked onto you and really has the loyal customer base. I think that's really important for, I would say, maybe anybody who's in the CPG category, or even if not, right? It is important that you are more relevant and you are placed where the audience really wants to solve, looking for solutions for a problem, right? Not really push, but more pull.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, there are many examples in FMCG where, for example, in Korea, GSK actually owns the largest moms portal. It was created as a problem-solving place for moms to come in, and that became one of their largest referral mechanisms.
Right.
And I think those are direct, B2C initiatives that brands should look at doing. Now the barriers to create such platforms have fallen a lot. So the tech is far more simpler and cheaper to execute. So
just ending the note, and everyone just said, and please add if I missed out something. I think number one point that we're taking out is we need to think bigger data models, not just get limited to data models that we have. That's number one. Secondly, I think we talked about how do we need to revamp or re-radicalize our research algorithms. Third, I think the power of partnerships. I think Jayesh and Ranjit, you both talked about how you've seen that happen in the world. You've just started in India, but the power of partnership is really going to really change. And Rohit, from your argument, I also take out yours and Taranjit, is how do we really reimagine our current tech stack, ad stack, and get ready for the new one? Is there any final thoughts that anyone would like to add on this?
I think it's about controlling your destiny through a tech and data stack is most important. And I think this journey is detailed, oriented, and iterative, right? And there's no escaping that iteration in this whole journey is what I would say. And the other limited point I would make is the tools for testing some of these things have become widespread, cheaper, and it's the barrier to entry to do something like, if you had asked me 3 years back, can I build my tech stack? I would have said it's a very difficult proposition.
Yeah.
You may not get board approval, but today it is much more easier and cheaper, and you will get board approval immediate is what I would think.
Absolutely. All right. Great. Any last thoughts, Taranjit or Rohit?
Yeah, I feel, I think before the cookie crumbles, it's important for us to become Atmanirbhar, as Modi said, right? And we all have to build our own tech stack, be dependent ourselves on data. I think publishers, and whether it is publishers or it is any partner, if we all work together towards this and complete lot of transparency, I think we'll be able to crack this.
Great. Rohit, any last words?
All the data or tech stack that we have are actually an added pieces to the value that we provide to the customer, right? So let's say if the product or the content that you offer to the client is super good, you don't really need to persuade a customer or need to go behind them to retarget or do dynamic remarketing ads. what end of the day, what matters as a brand is how good your product is or how relevant is your communication to the customer. So that will keep the journey going. And as Jayesh said, all these things are just iterations to what's existing to the current approach.
Right. All right then. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you so much.